Need to get this off my chest before I lose my mind. My fiancée Sarah is 28. We've been together 6 years, engaged for one, and our wedding is 2 weeks away. But after what I saw tonight, I'm questioning everything. We were having a rare, quiet night at home. She was in the kitchen making dinner while I worked on a backyard project, a fire pit we planned to enjoy this fall. I stepped inside for a drink and heard her on speakerphone. It was my brother-in-law, Marty. He asked, "Where's Evelyn?" She's not answering my texts. Without missing a beat, Sarah replied, "She just left here. She should be home in about 30 minutes. That stopped me cold. For context, Evelyn is Marty's wife. They've been married 5 years. I hadn't seen her since yesterday when she helped Sarah with wedding decorations. So why would Sarah say she'd just left? I asked who she was talking to. "Marty," she said. "He's looking for Evie." Then I saw her texting someone. When I asked who, she said she was messaging Evelyn to let her know Marty was looking for her. But that didn't add up. If Evelyn wasn't answering texts, why try to message her? And how did Sarah know she'd be home in half an hour? It only made sense if Sarah knew exactly where Evelyn was, or if she was warning her. I spiraled for hours. The thought that Sarah was lying for Evelyn and helping her cover something up ate at me. I didn't want to believe it, but I couldn't ignore it either. At 1 a.m., I gave in and checked Sarah's phone. We both know each other's passcodes. In the bathroom, I found hundreds of messages between her and Evelyn. It was everything I feared. They were hiding Evelyn's 6-month affair with a coworker. Sarah had known the whole time, covering for her, texting details, even joking about Marty. Reading it made me sick. This is the woman I'm supposed to marry? I took screenshots and put the phone back. I've been sitting in my office ever since, trying not to scream. I can't marry her. Not after this. There's no excuse for what she did, not just to Marty, but to their little girl, too. And yet, the wedding's in 2 weeks. Our families have spent thousands. That money's gone. I feel like an idiot. I thought I knew Sarah. Funny, kind, beautiful. She's never hurt me before. Until now. But this changes everything. I can't unsee it. The worst part, a piece of me still wants to go through with it. That scares me. But I know I can't. I won't. It's 5 a.m. I've barely slept. I'm going to shower and head to work early. Anything to avoid facing her right now. At 7, I called my brother in Australia. Telling him was rough. He spent a lot flying his family out for the wedding. But he didn't even bring it up. He just listened and backed me up. He said, "You deal with liars every day at work. Of course, you want your home to be the one place where that's not an issue." He got it. He even had a great idea. He's taking his family to Florida to visit the parks. That's where we were supposed to honeymoon. I'll rebook everything and join them. Maybe I'll offer Sarah's ticket to my sister. Just finished our morning meeting at work. My nerves are shot from too much coffee, and I can't focus. I feel stuck, like I can't move on until I tell Marty the truth. I called in sick today and decided to drive to Marty's place. He's a teacher on break, so I figured I'd catch him at home. Evelyn works a typical 9 to 5 like me, so the timing worked. I got there around 10 a.m. Marty had just put his daughter down for a nap. We sat in the kitchen and had a long, honest conversation. Turns out he'd been suspicious for months. Evelyn had been hiding her tracks well, with help from Sarah and some mutual friends. I didn't have all the messages, just a couple dozen screenshots I'd saved from Sarah's phone. I showed him what I had and offered my help. I work in special investigations at an insurance company, mostly handling workers' comp fraud, so I've got resources and connections. Now I'm working remotely from Marty's kitchen, trying to get a handle on things. I'll be talking to Sarah tonight and letting friends and family know what's happening. Now that I know I'm not betraying Marty by speaking up, I can finally act. I've rebooked most of the honeymoon. There was an issue with Sarah's ticket being under her maiden name, but I got a partial refund and transferred the trip to my sister, who will join our family in Florida. I haven't canceled the venues yet. I want Marty to confront Evelyn first. After that, I'll tell our guests and ask them to stay quiet for now. Next on my list, cancel everything I can, head to the bank, and set up a new account. Thankfully, the house is in my name. Sarah contributed $20,000 to the down payment. I put in $60,000. I'll likely owe her her share plus some of the mortgage. But it could be worse. And just to be clear, I don't hate Sarah. I don't condone what she did, and I'm still reeling from how deceptive she's been. But I'm mostly just heartbroken. The timing is brutal. 2 weeks out from the wedding. If I had more time, maybe I'd process it differently, but I don't. I can't marry her. That's final. It's 8:30 p.m., and I'm crashing at my buddy Mark's place. We used to work together. We're both in SIU, basically private investigators for insurance fraud. Earlier, Marty asked me to help identify Evelyn's affair partner. All we had was a first name, Jake. I started with a basic LinkedIn search through Evelyn's contacts. Nothing. Weird. Marty told me Evelyn claimed she'd be out with coworkers until late. I could see where this was going. I told him I'd help, but he needed to come with me. I called Mark and brought him up to speed. We dropped Marty's daughter off with his parents, then drove to Evelyn's office, a bland strip mall setup. We spotted her car, and Marty had a spare key. I gave him a GPS tracker and voice recorder to plant inside. Once that was done, we waited for Mark. About 20 minutes later, he joined us in the car. An hour after that, Evelyn came out of the building with two girlfriends and a younger guy with sandy blonde hair. She was holding his hand. I muttered, "Really, Evelyn? This easy?" I took photos as they all headed to their cars. Evelyn drove off first, so we followed. I expected a hotel, but she pulled up to a trendy bar and grill. I passed her as she got out, then parked and filled Mark in. He went inside first. Nobody there knew him, and his job was to grab photos and act as my witness if needed. Marty and I waited until I got a stream of texts. Mark had nailed it. Photos of Evelyn and Jake making out at the table, right in front of her friends. Marty was crushed. One of the women is married, and their families are close. Just more betrayal. I asked if that was enough. He said no, he needed to know who Jake was. I tried to talk him down, said we'd figure it out later, but he was desperate. So I messaged Mark, told him I was coming in, and walked into the bar. The second I walked in, I spotted them at a tall round table by the window, drinks in hand, laughing. I paused, pretended to be surprised, then called out, "Evelyn? Hey, what are you doing here?" Everything stopped. Evelyn stiffened, and the whole table went quiet. She quickly introduced me as her sister's fiancée and mentioned our wedding was in 2 weeks. The group responded with polite congratulations. "Thanks," I said, offering my hand to the blonde guy. "Nice to meet you." He shook my hand and introduced himself. But the name wasn't Jake. I kept my expression neutral, greeted the rest of the group, and casually told Evelyn, "I'm actually meeting a coworker here." I waved toward Mark, who was across the bar, then excused myself. As soon as I reached him, I leaned in and whispered, "That guy's not Jake." We both pulled out our phones and started digging. It didn't take long. We found his social media and even a few court records. And then it all made sense. Jake was his middle name. At least Evelyn wasn't cheating on Marty with two co-workers. Silver linings, I guess. We also discovered Jake is 26, married, and has a 1-year-old daughter. Just when you think it can't get any worse. I texted Marty the guy's real name and told him to hold tight. I stayed visible at the bar, right in Evelyn's line of sight. The mood at their table had shifted. No one looked relaxed anymore. That was the goal. 10 minutes later, I told Marty to text Evelyn that he was staying at his parents' house with their daughter tonight. Not long after, Evelyn looked at her phone, showed something to Jake, and within moments, the entire group was grabbing their things. Evelyn walked over to me and said, "Good night. Hey, do you and Sarah want to come over for dinner this weekend?" I smiled and replied, "That sounds great. Have a good night." Once they were out of sight, Mark and I paid the bill and rushed back to Marty. We didn't know what Evelyn's next move would be. Maybe a hotel. But we followed her car discreetly. She ended up going home. A few minutes later, another car pulled into the driveway. Jake stepped out, walked to the front door, and Evelyn let him in. It was around 7:30 p.m. by that point. I'd done more than enough. I had my own situation to deal with. Marty said, "It's fine, I'll take it from here." He grabbed my gear from Evelyn's car. We said our goodbyes, and I headed back to Mark's place. About 2 hours later, I got one message from Marty. "It's done. I'm going to my parents for real this time. No word since. I don't know how things ended with Evelyn. I'm staying out of it now." If he followed my advice, he was recording the whole thing. I'll find out eventually. Right now, I need to focus on Sarah. I'm going home to end the engagement. I know it's going to go badly. There's no easy way to do this, but I can't marry her. Not after everything I've seen. I don't know if we're done for good or just for now, but the wedding is off. Period. Until that night, I had no reason to doubt her, but seeing how easily she lied flipped a switch. I saw a whole new side of her, and it was like the ground fell out from under me. Honestly, I'm proud I stayed calm. If I had confronted her then and there, she might have deleted everything. I'd never have seen the messages, never uncovered what she was hiding. So yeah, I followed my gut. And it worked. Last night, I finally had the talk with Sarah. It was rough. When I walked in, she was on the couch comforting Evelyn. For a second, I considered turning around. But I didn't. Words were exchanged. Emotions ran high, voices got loud, and eventually the police were called. Afterward, I crashed and slept nearly 10 hours, took another sick day, finally got some rest around 11 a.m. The exhaustion hit hard. To summarize, I came home ready to cancel the wedding and found Sarah consoling the woman she helped cover for. That about says it all. My phone's been blowing up ever since. Texts, calls, voicemails. At this point, if it vibrates again, I might leave it at Evelyn's office and charge $10 a minute for people to watch it. Things are still chaotic. My family already knew by yesterday afternoon. Now I've got to notify friends, handle logistics, and try to move forward. Update. At first, I was uneasy about how public this all became. Like, what have I done? But after this past weekend, I've decided to stop caring. The truth's out, and frankly, I don't think I've done anything wrong, no matter what a few critics might say. There's a lot to unpack, and most of it has been a mess. Honestly, a total train wreck. I didn't leave Mark's place until late that night. Sarah knew I was out handling business with him, but she had no clue that the business was her sister's affair. I stayed longer than necessary, mostly trying to work up the nerve to face her. After a few pep talks from Mark, I finally texted Sarah to let her know I was heading home. I wasn't ready for what I walked into. Evelyn was on the couch, crying, with Sarah sitting beside her. I hadn't seen Evelyn's car outside, so her being there caught me completely off guard. I froze. For a second, I almost turned around and left. This wasn't how I imagined things going down. Evelyn being there made everything more complicated, but I had a timeline. I needed to start calling friends, canceling vendors, and I couldn't put it off any longer. They both looked up, but no one said a word. No accusations, just silence. I raised my eyebrows and waited. Evelyn went back to sobbing, and Sarah resumed comforting her. After half a minute of uncomfortable quiet, I sat down in the recliner, dropped my laptop bag, pulled out my phone, and casually asked, "So, what's going on?" Evelyn kept crying. Sarah finally looked up and said, "Marty's divorcing Evie." No shock there. Still, I asked, "Why?" Sarah hesitated. Her face twisted like a kid being forced to eat vegetables. Evelyn shot her a sharp look. Finally, Sarah mumbled, "She cheated on him." That hit me. I wasn't expecting her to just admit it. She could have played it safe, claimed Marty was accusing her. But no, she confirmed it outright. That mattered. How she said it mattered. I read people for a living, and the tone, the delivery, it told me everything. Evelyn looked like she'd imploded, letting out this mix between a sob and a sigh. I wanted to push further, but I hesitated. Sarah must have read my silence as shock. She was half right. "Did you know?" I asked. She nodded, still rubbing Evelyn's shoulder. "For how long?" 6 months, she answered, plain as day. Even Evelyn was stunned. She smacked Sarah's hand away. Sarah looked like she couldn't believe what had just come out of her mouth. I leaned back, rubbed my face, and decided to just get it over with. "We're not getting married." Both of them froze. "What?" they said, almost in unison. I stood up. "I can't marry someone who helped cover up an affair for 6 months. I just can't." Sarah jumped up, arms wide, like I just insulted her entire family. Her body language screamed denial. I raised my hands to keep her back. "I mean it. This doesn't sit right with me. You were part of this, and I can't pretend that doesn't matter. Marrying you now would be a mistake." And that's when the breakdown began. Sarah started sobbing uncontrollably. Evelyn looked stunned and furious. The tears turned into pleading, accusations that I didn't love her, that I was destroying everything, that we'd lose thousands, embarrass ourselves in front of everyone we know. All things I'd already considered. Hearing them out loud in that moment made them hit harder. Then I slipped. Or maybe it wasn't a mistake, just risky. I said, "I already canceled the honeymoon. It's done." That was the match to the gasoline. Evelyn's eyes lit up with rage. She connected the dots, me showing up at the bar, the cold demeanor, the canceled honeymoon, her face twisted in fury. "You son of a witch!" she screamed and lunged at me. I'm not a big guy, but I can handle myself. Still, she caught me off guard with how fast she came at me. I stumbled back, barely dodging her nails as she clawed at my face. I almost dropped my phone, but I shoved her off just in time. "Evelyn, get off me!" I shouted. "Sarah, control your sister!" She came at me again, but this time Sarah grabbed her from behind and held her back. "Get out of here right now!" I warned, holding up my phone. "Or I'm calling the cops." Sarah begged us both to calm down. Then she said something that finally explained the missing car. "Marty took her keys. She has nowhere to go." I didn't care anymore. I walked straight to my office, locked the door behind me, and dialed the police. I told the dispatcher I'd been attacked by my fiancée's sister, that I was bleeding and my vision was blurred from a scratch near my eye. I also mentioned I had the entire incident recorded on my phone. Right after I hung up, Sarah knocked on the door. "Please come out. We need to talk," she said. "I love you. Let's not do this. Evelyn's sorry. She wants to apologize." I didn't believe that last part for a second, but Sarah was clearly unraveling. I stayed silent. A few minutes later, I heard a knock at the front door. The police had arrived. Two male officers, one younger, one clearly older and worn, stood at the door. I introduced myself, pointed directly at Evelyn, and said, "She attacked me." Then I offered the video evidence on my phone. The younger officer asked, "Do you want to press charges?" "Yes," I replied. He hesitated, then repeated, "Are you sure you want to press charges?" I locked eyes with him. "Yes, I have the recording. This is going to court, and if you don't take this seriously, I'll call your supervisor." I gave him the name and have him come deal with it. That caught them off guard. They clearly didn't expect me to know the local chain of command. We're not friends, but in my line of work, I've had plenty of professional dealings with law enforcement. I was angry. I understood they might have seen this as just another domestic squabble, but Evelyn physically attacked me in my own home. No, I wasn't pouring blood, but my face was scratched, and I wanted her gone. Thankfully, it didn't escalate further. They cuffed Evelyn and took her outside. She was screaming, crying, completely hysterical. Sarah wasn't much better, quietly repeating, "No, please no." The younger cop came back in and asked me, "Is everything okay here?" I said, "I'm going to bed." He turned to Sarah. "Ma'am, are you okay?" She didn't respond at first. "Ma'am," he repeated, "is everything okay here?" It was obvious what he was doing, trying to sniff out signs of misuse. I bit my tongue, but his tone rubbed me the wrong way. Sarah finally nodded. Still not convinced, he started to press again. I cut in before he could. "If you're going to fish, maybe try the front lawn where my doorbell cam can record you clearly." That almost crossed the line. I could tell I was seconds from being cuffed myself, but the older officer stepped in, pulled his partner aside, and diffused the situation. The guy was clearly not interested in spending the night booking both of us. Eventually, they left, with Evelyn in custody. I stood in the hallway afterward, unsure of what to do next. Part of me wanted to pack a bag and go, but my parents live hours away, and a hotel didn't make sense with everything going on. I chose to sleep in the guest room instead. Sarah made one last attempt to talk, to get me to come to bed. I shut it down. "We'll talk tomorrow. I'm exhausted. Leave me alone." She understood. I slept harder than I had in years. Which brings us to the next day, the single weirdest day of my life. I woke up around 11 a.m. Sarah was still home. The entire house looked spotless, floors polished, bathrooms pristine. It smelled like mint cleaner everywhere. She'd clearly thrown herself into cleaning as a coping mechanism. When she saw me, she hovered, close enough to speak, but not too close. It was clear she wanted to talk, but didn't know how. I understood. Last night had been traumatic for everyone. She had no idea where we stood, whether the wedding was canceled in the heat of the moment or if I meant it, whether there was still an us. I took a breath. "We need to finish this conversation," I said. She nodded and started to sit next to me on the couch. I considered telling her not to, but I didn't. We weren't getting married, but I didn't need to be cruel. I wasn't angry anymore, just disappointed. The things I read in those messages between her and Evelyn still made my stomach turn. But we were both hurting. I didn't want to add to it. It took time, but I convinced her the wedding was truly off. She didn't take it well. That's putting it lightly. She was breaking down, nearly hyperventilating. Meanwhile, I was calm, only because I'd had time to process everything. This decision wasn't new to me. Then came the big question. What about us? I know some people will judge me for this. Canceling a wedding 2 weeks out is the nuclear option in a long relationship, but I didn't have an answer for her. "I don't know," I said. "I've read everything. Those messages showed me a version of you I never knew existed. I don't know what's real anymore. I don't understand how you could stand by Evelyn like that, mocking Marty, helping her cheat, knowing what it would do to him and their daughter." She broke down again, repeating, I know it was wrong." I asked her to explain. She didn't have one. "I got caught up," she said softly. "She's my sister. I felt like I had to protect her." "No," I told her. "A good sister holds you accountable. A good sister calls you out when you're being awful, not helps you hide it." She nodded slowly. "You're right, I know. Evelyn's always been the dominant one. I've always just followed." I kind of understood. At least in theory. I've got an older sibling too, but he lives halfway across the world and thankfully happens to be a decent human being. Maybe I just got lucky. Then came the second bombshell, just 48 hours after the first. Sarah looked at me and said, "It's not fair." "What's not fair?" "You sexted that Mandy girl on Instagram last year," she snapped. "I saw the messages. I was hurt, but I forgave you. Why can't you forgive me?" I blinked. "Wait, what? Mandy? Who even is that?" She was crying now, voice cracking between sobs. "I didn't say anything because you stopped, but I saw everything." I was stunned. I had zero idea what she was talking about. I'd never sexted anyone in my life, let alone someone named Mandy. My confusion turned into frustration. "What are you talking about? Are you high, having a breakdown?" "Yeah, harsh." But I was blindsided. Sarah kept yelling through her tears, swearing up and down that she'd seen inappropriate messages from my Instagram. Said she found them while snooping on our home computer while I was at work. Apparently, she never brought it up because I'd stopped. I explained again and again that my social media is pretty tame, mostly family and coworkers. I even offered to log into every account on the spot. But she wasn't listening. She was furious, calling me a liar, a creep, and a dozen other things. Then she started throwing things. That's when I drew the line. "Throw one more thing," I said, "and I'll have you removed from this house just like your sister." She cursed, stormed into the bedroom, and slammed the door. Now completely confused, I sat down at my office computer and typed "bimbo wife Mandy" into Google. Instantly, pages came up: Instagram, Twitter, Reddit, and of course, OnlyFans. I clicked the Insta link, and up popped a picture of a woman so unrealistically busty, it looked like a physics experiment. And guess where she's from? Australia. Then it clicked. Remember how I praised my brother? Well, he stayed with us over the holidays, flew in from Australia. I told him he could use my office setup if he couldn't sleep. Apparently, after his wife and kids went to bed, he logged in and got cozy with Mandy. Possibly even paid her for messages. What a guy. I wanted to call and confront him right then, but it was 2 or 3 a.m. his time. I had to sit with it, trying to process the train wreck of the past few days. Sarah, Evelyn, and now even my brother had let me down. I tried to make sense of it. Maybe Sarah thought she was forgiving me for something I'd done, and that somehow justified helping Evelyn cover her affair. But it doesn't track. If she had confronted me back then about what she thought she saw, maybe we could have cleared the air. Maybe that would have changed what came next. Or maybe not. All I know is most of my family relationships are strained now. My parents have been supportive, but their patience is thinning as the financial cost of canceling the wedding becomes more real. And yes, the wedding is still off. That's not changing. Sarah's parents are livid. I'm sure they got voodoo dolls of me by now. Evelyn's out of jail. Sarah bailed her out. I lashed out, called her a doormat for her sister. I think it hit a nerve because later that night, Sarah handed me a 20-page letter detailing how Evelyn had controlled her since they were kids. Update. Last time I left off, I suspected my brother had used my office computer to chat with Mandy, but I hadn't confirmed it because of the time difference. I'm the type who has to solve problems the second they land in my lap. It's great for work, but a nightmare when my personal life is imploding. So I forced myself to pause the spiral, breathe, and focus on what I could control. Step 1. Notify the rest of my guests about the wedding cancellation. My parents had already informed some extended family, but only Sarah and I had the full list, so the rest was on me. I chose to call instead of text, thinking it'd be more respectful. In hindsight, probably a mistake. Each call turned into a drawn-out conversation filled with questions and sympathy. I could have made up a reason, blamed cold feet, but I didn't want anyone thinking this was some impulsive choice. They deserved the truth. This wasn't nerves. This was betrayal. Canceling the wedding wasn't just about me. It was about respecting everyone who'd planned to be there for us. So I told the truth, call after call, until the sun started rising in Australia. Then it was time to deal with the next issue. My brother. Let's call him Carl. Carl and I have always been close, despite our 13-year age gap. He was like a second dad to me growing up. Mature, steady, the guy who never treated me like an annoying kid. I looked up to him, which made this so much harder. The idea that he'd been sexting some model while staying at my place using my computer felt like a gut punch. I was still dealing with Sarah and Evelyn, and now this? I wasn't even sure I cared about clearing my name anymore, but I knew I had to confront him. At the very least, I needed to call him out. Whether I tell his wife, let's call her Karen, would depend on how that conversation went. After a sandwich and some time alone, I logged into Facebook and video called him. Carl works from home in IT, so he picked up almost immediately. We exchanged a quick hello, but I didn't waste time. "Did you use my computer to message some Instagram model while you were here?" I asked. His face went stiff. He leaned off screen to shut his office door. Yeah, I did. Why? I swore and explained that Sarah had found something on the computer and assumed it was me. I told him how furious I was for getting blamed. Does Karen know? I asked. He stumbled a bit, then admitted, no, and I'd rather keep it that way. He told me things had been rocky with Karen ever since their youngest was born, especially in the bedroom. He said he'd felt constantly rejected, no matter how much he helped around the house or with the kids. Over time, the stress turned into performance issues, which just made everything worse. There's no amount of laundry folded or dishes washed that's going to get me laid, he said bluntly. So I started spending nights in the office, working. He even made air quotes. That so-called work spiraled into an OnlyFans habit. With privacy, access, and stress, it all added up. I asked if he was still doing it. He swore he'd stopped, and honestly, he sounded genuine. But after the week I'd had, I didn't know if I trusted anyone anymore. Now I had a problem. If I wanted to clear my name, Carl would need to confess to Sarah. But if he did that, there was no telling whether she'd keep quiet or blow it up and tell Karen. And while I did think Karen deserved the truth, I wasn't sure I could be the one to drop that bomb, especially if Carl really was trying to fix things. I think you should tell her, I said, and get into counseling. He told me they'd actually been in therapy for 6 months, and it had helped. But what really made the difference? Generic Viagra. I nearly spit out my drink. Seriously, Carl said, laughing. We're finally making time for each other again, a few nights a week even. It's helped a lot. No more anxiety. Things are actually okay now. Translation. Please don't ruin this. I never wanted to be in this position, not for Carl, not for Karen, and definitely not for my nieces. If Carl was being honest, blowing the whole thing up could destroy something that was finally starting to mend. So, yeah, I know some people won't agree, but I chose to wait. I'd be seeing Carl in a couple of weeks, and I figured an in-person talk, maybe over a drink, would give me a better read on what to do next. That night, I went to bed early. I didn't see Sarah until the next morning. She looked wrecked, like she hadn't slept a minute. Out of habit, I asked, "Where were you?" "We went to the courthouse," she said flatly. "Evelyn's arraignment. I posted bail." I just stared. "The courts close early on weekends," she added. "I left while you were in your office. Afterward, I drove her to her parents and stayed the night." Then she added bitterly, "It was great explaining to my parents that you called off the wedding." "Did you tell them why?" I asked. She snapped. "Of course I did." I tried to stay calm, but my patience was razor thin. "So are you moving back in with them now? That way both daughters can be under one roof?" It was petty, I knew it, but her bailing Evelyn out still had me seeing red. "You don't have to be such an A," she muttered. "And you don't have to play servant to your sister," I shot back. That hit her hard. I saw it, the stiff shoulders, watery eyes. She turned away without a word, and for once I didn't push it. I cooled off and walked out of the room. We stood there for a long minute, silent and distant. Then Sarah finally broke the quiet. "Our parents will be here at 3. I instinctively facepalmed. I was ready to go off about not being asked first, but I caught myself. This wasn't about ego. Honestly, the meeting needed to happen. We had to explain things face to face, talk about the cancellation, deposits, and whatever was left to deal with. Fine, let's just get through it. The rest of the day dragged. Sundays are already slow, but waiting for a conversation like that? Torture. At 3 p.m., the parents arrived. We all gathered at the kitchen table, the big oak one Sarah bought off Facebook Marketplace just a month after we closed on the house. She'd pictured holiday dinners, birthdays, family gatherings, not this. The next 3 hours were brutal. No one was happy, obviously. My parents were supportive, in a restrained way. Their attitude was basically, it's his call, even if we think it's crazy. That was fine. I didn't need them to carry the weight of the canceled wedding. I could own it myself. Eventually, we worked out how to split costs. We'd each try to recover whatever we could and divide the losses proportionally. I'd paid for the honeymoon. Sarah's parents had covered the flowers. Some expenses were lost causes, others were negotiable. Then the house came up. I offered to reimburse Sarah or her parents for their share of the down payment. That's when it all went off the rails. Sarah lost it. She hadn't expected me to suggest she move out. To be fair, we hadn't discussed our relationship or living situation since the fallout, so my suggestion hit her like a blindside. It exposed just how emotionally detached I'd already become. Our parents saw it coming. Sarah clearly didn't. "I'm not moving out," she snapped. "And we're not breaking up." That's how Sunday ended. After everyone left, Sarah and I tried talking again, but It just went in circles. I had to fight the urge to push for resolution. I was too drained. I just wanted mental silence. Believe it or not, we ended up on the couch watching a movie. No words, no clarity, just emotional exhaustion. When it ended, we exchanged a quiet, "We'll talk more tomorrow," and went to separate rooms. The next morning, I woke up to a handwritten letter slid under my door. It was from Sarah. I skimmed the first few pages but didn't finish it right away. I had to get to work. She was still asleep when I left. Probably stayed up all night writing it. At the office, I pushed a few meetings and started calling vendors. Sarah and her parents were handling some of them too. The results were mixed. The caterer refused to refund me, saying the food had already been ordered. I argued, "What do you expect me to do? Eat a week-old filet mignon?" I snapped. Didn't matter. They weren't budging. On the other hand, the DJ I hired refunded most of the deposit with no drama. It wasn't much, but still, it felt like a small win. In between work calls and vendor battles, I read Sarah's letter. It was 20 pages long. Here's the summary. In her letter, Sarah described a childhood dominated by Evelyn's bullying. Her way of coping had been simple: go along with whatever Evelyn wanted. No resistance, no opinion, just quiet compliance. Over time, that survival tactic became her default way of living. She admitted she was afraid to speak up, afraid to cause conflict, even afraid to express her own thoughts. As I sat with that, I started to see our relationship differently. Looking back, Sarah always seemed almost too agreeable. She never argued, never pushed back, never prioritized her own plans over mine. She was endlessly supportive, always ready to help, and constantly said yes. In 6 years together, we'd never had a real argument. Not once. That sounds ideal until you realize it's not. What I was seeing now was a pattern of deep insecurity, people-pleasing behavior rooted in fear. And once I recognized it, so many things clicked into place. Then came the hard truth. After all this time, I didn't really know Sarah. I knew a version of her, a mirror reflecting what she thought I wanted. She shaped herself around who I was. And even the woman in those awful text messages? That probably wasn't her either. That was Evelyn's influence, another distorted reflection. It sounds strange, but I started to feel like our relationship had always been unbalanced. Maybe Sarah really did love me. Maybe for my openness, my honesty. But I think I only loved the image she gave me. Because the real Sarah? I never got the chance to meet her. If that sounds abstract, trust me, I know. It's still just a foggy idea I'm trying to fully grasp. But what is clear is that in the past few days, I've learned more about Sarah than I had in 6 years. We talked more that night, about her upbringing, about how she reacts to pressure. The conclusion we came to was heavy but honest. She needs help. She may be an adult, but she's still stuck in the same patterns she developed as a scared kid. Afraid of upsetting anyone, afraid of losing love, terrified of judgment. And that's not a solid foundation for any relationship. That realization finally brought me peace. Calling off the wedding was absolutely the right decision. For the first time in days, I went to bed without the weight of it crushing me. Update. Carl ended up telling Karen everything during one of their marriage counseling sessions. According to him, she took it surprisingly well, treated it like no big deal. When I pulled her aside last week and asked if she was truly okay with it, she shrugged and said something like, "We're not as innocent as you think. We both watch adult movies. This isn't much different. It's not like he flew out to meet her." I pushed a little. "What if it had been a courtesan?" "That's different," she said. "And he didn't." So, that's the boundary they've drawn. It's not one I agree with, but based on the noise from their hotel room last night, their dead bedroom seems to have come back to life. Honestly, they're taking full advantage of the situation. Since my sister took Sarah's spot on the trip, Carl and Karen swapped rooms with her. Now their daughters are having a sleepover with their aunt, thrilled by the change, and their parents have total privacy. We all know what's going on. No one says it aloud. Looking back, I think I made the right call letting Carl handle it himself. But I still believe his situation and Sarah's are worlds apart. Let's be clear, messaging an OnlyFans model isn't the same as carrying on a 6-month affair, covering for it, and trashing your brother-in-law behind his back. Sarah didn't just protect Evelyn, she actively joined in mocking Marty. I won't repeat what she said, but it shattered how I saw her. I don't regret how I handled either situation. As for the wedding, not much left to say. Everyone lost money, Sarah, our families, and me. It was inevitable. I gave the caterer an ultimatum: refund me or hand over the food. She chose the food, which was fair. Now my parents' freezer is packed with steak, chicken, and fish, and they've been handing it out to whoever wants it. Gifts from relatives have still been arriving. They're stacked up at my house, waiting to be returned. When the original wedding day came, Sarah and I agreed to spend it apart, for everyone's sake. Meanwhile, Marty and Evelyn's mess is far from over. Marty's set on divorce, but Evelyn's begging him to reconsider. With the school year starting soon, Marty will be back to teaching full-time. That means less time with his daughter and his parents, the very structure that's been keeping him stable. Despite everything, he hasn't gone scorched earth. He hasn't told their jobs about the affair, even though it happened on company time. He hasn't told Jake's wife either. When I asked why, all he said was, "I'm in no rush." And he's not bluffing. He has all the evidence. The texts, bar photos, even video footage. He could ruin Jake's life if he wanted. I think a part of him takes quiet satisfaction in watching Jake sweat. Or maybe he just wants Evelyn to fully realize she was nothing more than someone's backup option. Either way, Marty's darker now. Not bitter, but changed. And I don't blame him. Most of what I know about Evelyn now comes through Sarah. Apparently, Evelyn is basically grounded. She goes to work, then straight to her parents' house. No social life, no power, no freedom. And her parents? They're not thrilled with either of their daughters. Ironically, even though our canceled wedding was a public blow-up, Evelyn's divorce drama has taken the spotlight. Sarah told me her parents seemed to forget about her the moment Marty made it clear he was leaving and taking their granddaughter. Their frustration with Evelyn may have less to do with her affair and more to do with losing access to their grandchild. Now for the big one, Sarah and me. This won't sit well with everyone, but here's the truth. What affected me most weren't just the lies or her involvement in the affair. It was the way she spoke about Marty, the cruelty in those texts with Evelyn. I won't quote them, but they shook me. They made me question everything I thought I knew about her. No, we're not together, not like we were, but we haven't slammed the doors shut either. I've started to see who Sarah really is and who she pretended to be. Some of it is genuine, some of it is learned behavior meant to win approval from me, from Evelyn, from everyone. Understanding that helps. Putting a name to it, people-pleasing, driven by childhood trauma helps even more. And the fact that she's getting help for it, that matters. Despite how hurt I was, I'll give her credit. When I came home that night and found her and Evelyn on the couch, she didn't lie. She didn't downplay her role or spin the truth. At that point, she didn't know I had seen the texts. She could have covered for herself, but she didn't. She told me the truth, even though it made her look bad. That meant something, so no, we're not starting over, but we're not closing the book just yet either. Maybe this isn't the end. Maybe it's the start of something entirely different. Let me be clear, this isn't some win for the forgive her, blame the sister crowd. I haven't forgiven Sarah, and our relationship isn't what it was. She's back living in her old room at her parents' house, just like Evelyn. She says it's only temporary, that the environment's toxic and not helpful for her recovery. I'm repaying her share of the house in bi-weekly payments so she can eventually get a place of her own. We're not together. Sarah struggled to accept that at first, and I get it. I even sympathize. But if she's truly dealing with deep emotional issues, maybe being on her own will finally push her to take real steps toward healing. Forgiving her right away and pretending none of this happened would just be denial. That would have set us up for failure. I wish she'd opened up sooner. Let me be part of her healing. But she didn't. This is where we are now, and it's the best path forward. Right now, we're in a limbo phase. Wait and see. One of us might eventually let go for good. It could be me. But at the moment, I'm not interested in jumping into anything new or adding more emotional chaos to my life. I think it'll take months to figure out where we really stand, and that's fine. There's no need to rush. Financially, I'm stable. We're living separately. I am cautiously cynical, but realistic. If I reach a point where it's clear her issues are too big or trust can't be rebuilt, I'll walk away. No hesitation. I'm not going to drag something out just to avoid hard truths. That alone tells me I don't see it as hopeless. I just see it as difficult, and I'm open to seeing what happens. I've even started looking for a therapist, someone to help me process all of this and to better understand how I contributed to the dynamic. Because if I'm honest, I was part of the illusion, too. It's easy to fall for a partner who never disagrees, who always goes along, who puts your happiness first. What I'm trying to sort out now, and maybe Sarah is too, is how much of that was real love and how much was just fear. Fear of being rejected, fear of not being enough. That's the question. And once we figure that out, we'll know if there's anything left to rebuild. Update. Let me be clear. This isn't a forgive Sarah, blame Evelyn situation. I haven't forgiven her, and we're nowhere near what we used to be. She's staying at her parents' place for now, but plans to leave soon. I'm paying back her share of the house in biweekly installments so she can get her own place. We're not together. Sarah struggled to accept that at first. I get it, but if she's serious about healing, maybe distance is what she needs. Forgiving her without real change would have been a mistake. I wish she'd let me support her sooner, but she didn't, and this is where we are. Right now, we're in a wait-and-see phase. One of us might move on entirely. That could be me, but I'm not rushing into anything new. And I'm okay with the uncertainty. I'm stable, we're apart, and I'm realistic. If trust can't be rebuilt, I'll walk away. But I'm not convinced it's hopeless, just hard. I'm even looking into therapy. I need help unpacking everything, including my role. I won't lie, it felt good to have someone who never argued or put themselves first. But now I wonder, was it love or fear of rejection? Sarah's recent behavior showed me something. Our relationship wasn't the center of her world like I once thought. Her guilt over Marty, her niece, and a lifetime of resentment toward Evelyn and her parents pushed her to act. Maybe she wanted to hurt Evelyn. Maybe she just needed to do something. At first, I assumed she was trying to impress me, but I've realized not everything is about me. And when someone finally does the right thing, maybe I shouldn't meet it with suspicion. When Sarah overheard Evelyn and their parents plotting to falsely accuse Marty of misuse, I told her we had to warn him immediately. She wanted to be subtle. I wasn't having it. Still, I pushed her to do it herself to show Marty she was truly sorry. She was afraid. Her parents backed Evelyn, and she was under their roof again. But I promised if it blew up, I'd help her find a place. She asked me to go with her. No, I said. You need to do this yourself. She did. They met at Marty's parents' house. She told him everything and gave a formal statement. His parents were harsh, but fair. Marty's lawyer filed the affidavit and a recorded interview. Sarah got to spend a moment with her niece after. That meant a lot to her, and it made me wonder if she was carrying guilt that wasn't entirely hers. She didn't end up needing housing help. She got her own place, and I advanced her some cash to help. Then Evelyn followed through with her false accusation, and it was bad. There was an emergency custody hearing that night. Marty's lawyer presented Sarah's statement and the recording. Evelyn didn't get arrested, but she's facing charges. Likely nothing serious. But Marty won full custody. Evelyn now has supervised visits only. Sarah's family disowned her. She expected it, but it still hurts. No matter how toxic they were, they're still her family. She jokes that being exiled helps me get over them, but I know it stings. I invited her to visit my brother in Australia, thinking she'd say no, but she accepted. My brother lives on a big property in rural Queensland. We cleared the snakes, and now Sarah and I are neighbors in separate bungalows. Surfing on Christmas is the plan. Our relationship? Still complicated. Separate rooms, separate lives, for now. But I feel better about where we are. The reason I ended the engagement wasn't just what she did, but how she enabled Evelyn. Now that she's completely burned that bridge, it's hard to believe she's still under Evelyn's thumb. At this point, doubting that would say more about me than her. That said, we're taking things slow. Right now, it's this odd, exclusive but platonic relationship. Obviously, that can't last forever. Sarah's been clear about where she hopes it's headed, but I'm staying cautious. It's not that I don't love her. That was never the problem. And it's not even a matter of trust anymore. Most of that has been worked through. I'm just unsure about the future. I'm not eager to jump back into wedding plans, and honestly, I think my friends would revolt if I did. Sarah knows that, and for the most part, understands. Still, even if she says marriage doesn't matter, I get the feeling it does to her, at least a little. The truth is, the relationship that once led us toward marriage is over. Maybe we'll build something new, maybe it leads to the same place. But I'm no longer sure that's what I want. And it's not just about her. After everything I've seen these past 6 months, the idea of marriage itself doesn't carry the same appeal. It feels tainted. Whatever comes next between us has to factor that in. I don't want to lead her on or waste her time. I guess we'll see where things go. Update. Marty and Evelyn are officially divorced. It took just over 6 months. Pretty standard here, even with Evelyn stalling and drama. The biggest outcome? Marty got primary custody of their daughter. That's rare, but Evelyn made it easy. False accusations, damning psych reports, and the fact that Marty already had custody. The judge ruled to maintain the status quo. It's true what they say, possession is 9/10 of the law. If you're going through a divorce, remember that. Financially, it was straightforward. They sold the house, and Marty got a slightly larger share in place of alimony. Done and dusted. I grabbed dinner with Marty recently near my office. He thanked me again and even had kind words for Sarah. I appreciated that. She's been a great aunt, spending lots of time with his daughter. Of course, it's only on Marty's time. Evelyn's still not speaking to her. One surprising thing from that night. Marty said Evelyn wrote him a letter during the divorce, asking for another chance and confessing more affairs, including one from before they were even married. We both sat there like, why marry someone you're already cheating on? Marty isn't rich or flashy. He's just a good guy and a high school teacher. If that life wasn't what she wanted, she could have walked away. Instead, she stuck around and did damage. Evelyn says she's in therapy, trying to change. But as Marty put it, she doesn't have a self-esteem issue. She has a character problem. Her court behavior said it all. Therapy can't fix someone who refuses to take responsibility. I told him what Sarah had shared about their upbringing, and we agreed. Evelyn's a manipulator. That letter didn't change anything. It only confirmed Marty's decision. He also told me he finally contacted Jake's wife. He'd been sitting on it, worried it would affect the divorce. I didn't love that reason, but I understood it. Turns out Jake's wife was blindsided. She had no idea. She's trying to hold things together for their young kid, but it's rough. Marty said, if it were me, I'd want to know. Hard to argue with that. As for revenge, Marty said he's done. Hurting Jake only makes life harder for his family. I just want to move on. Honestly, he's a better man than I am. Sarah and I had a great trip to Queensland. The weather was warm, the beaches were perfect, and she spent a lot of time with my nieces. She's a natural with kids. Being a teacher hasn't worn her down one bit. It was peaceful and drama-free, exactly what we needed. Being in a different environment helped us focus on the present instead of the chaos behind us. By the time we flew back, we were both more grounded. A lot of the tension had faded. Some problems still linger, though. My aversion to marriage has been the hardest part for her. The better things got between us, the more that issue came up. Eventually, I sat her down and explained, it's not about us. It's everything I've seen these past few months. The cheating, the lies, the fallout. Marriage feels like a weight I'm not ready to carry again. She took some time to sit with that. Then one evening, while we were doing dishes, she asked softly, do you still want kids someday? It was a fair question, and one I hadn't asked myself in a while. I used to look forward to having a family with her. She'd make an incredible mom. Watching her with my nieces reminded me of that. That's when I realized I haven't given up on the idea of a family. Just marriage. It might sound contradictory, but it makes sense to me. Her question made me think long-term again, something I'd been avoiding. I told her the truth, that I still want a family. She said, so do I, but if you didn't, I'd still want to be with you. That meant a lot, but I told her honestly, if being with me means you never get to be a mom, I couldn't live with that. We went back and forth. I said she was giving up too much. She insisted she wasn't. We agreed to take more time and revisit the conversation, and I did. After thinking it through, I realized I still want what I always wanted, a family like the one I grew up in. Marriage or not, a legal document doesn't make it more real. If it ends, there's still child support, custody, and heartbreak. The commitment is the same. Once I came to terms with what I really wanted, I asked myself, if I were going to start a family, would I want to do it with anyone other than Sarah? The answer was easy. No. I've always loved her. That never changed. Sure, my trust had been shaken, but I started to believe that, without the pressure of a looming wedding, we might have made it work. No, we didn't rush off and get married. But we finally sat down for a serious conversation, one we'd avoided too long. I told her, I want a family. And if we raise kids together, would you still want to be married? Or at least live together? She said she would prefer either marriage or cohabitation. I reminded her that in our state, long-term cohabitation is treated similarly to marriage. She nodded. She knew. Then she surprised me. She pulled an envelope from her purse and handed it to me. A letter? I asked. She shook her head. It's a prenup. I had it drawn up after we split. I meant to give it to you, but once I realized where your head was, I didn't want to pressure you. I was caught off guard. I assumed she'd been quietly bitter about the canceled wedding, but she told me, I wasn't mad. I was hurt, and mostly angry at myself for not seeing the signs. She'd kept the prenup as proof that, if the time came, she was serious about rebuilding trust. I asked, would you have shown me this if I'd proposed again? Absolutely, she said. You need to trust me. I don't want to fail you or myself again. I believed her. I read it. It was fair, thoughtfully written, with an infidelity clause that was more conservative than I expected. She said we could revise it together, but the main points mattered to her. I agreed. We kept talking about next steps, about us. Then I asked, would you move back in with me? She didn't say anything at first, just teared up. She's an emotional crier. My shirt paid the price. Her lease still has a few months left, so we decided she'll finish it out, then move back in. She joked, maybe I should sign a lease with you, just to keep it official. I laughed. We'll figure it out. I wouldn't call it a clean new chapter. It's more of an in-between. We're talking, reflecting, and I've been paying close attention to her actions, and she's been showing up. One thing she said really stuck with me. This is the best thing that's happened to me in a long time, and I have no one to share it with. She's not only estranged from Evelyn, but also not speaking to her mom. Her dad checks in occasionally, but she and her mother treat each other like they don't exist. I've got mixed feelings. Part of me knows her family caused a lot of her emotional wounds, and even with therapy, she's not ready to face them. But I wish it didn't have to be like this. My family and hers couldn't be more different. She missed out on a lot. Loving siblings, supportive parents, a sense of security. That hurts me, and it hurts her too. The one upside? My family never gave up on her. Even after the chaos, my parents have quietly hoped we'd find our way back to each other. They never closed the door. So that's where we are, not married. Not quite back to what we were, but maybe slowly, building something better.